My stepmother denies stealing from our family, but I followed her to a pawn shop and saw this. I'm George, a 58-year-old father-in-law to a woman named Vivian, who's about 50. She's married to my son, and let's just say we've had our differences. But what's eating me up inside is something that's gone way beyond a simple disagreement. So, here's the deal, my family has this heirloom watch that's been passed down for generations. It's more than just a timepiece, it's a symbol of our family's history and legacy. It was supposed to go to my son, but recently, I've noticed it's missing. I've turned the house upside down looking for it, but no luck. Naturally, I went to Vivian about it. I didn't want to accuse her outright, but when I asked if she'd seen it, she just gave me this cool, detached response, saying she had no idea where it might be. Her reaction was so nonchalant it set off alarm bells in my head. Things got weirder when we had a family dinner last week. Vivian showed up with some flashy new jewelry. It was definitely not her style, and it looked expensive. I couldn't help but wonder where it came from, especially since we're not exactly rolling in dough. Then, my daughter Emily, who's always had a keen sense of what's going on around her, pulled me aside. She told me she'd overheard Vivian bragging about some lucrative deal she'd made. Emily didn't have all the details, but it was enough to make me suspicious. I decided to take matters into my own hands. I followed Vivian one day when she said she was going out for errands. She led me to this high-end pawn shop downtown. I tried to keep a low profile, but the place was crowded, and I lost sight of her. Not one to give up, I struck up a conversation with the pawn shop owner, Frank. I pretended to be interested in antiques, just to get him talking. Frank mentioned that he'd recently bought a watch that sounded a lot like our family heirloom. But when I pressed for details about who sold it to him, he clammed up. The next clue came unexpectedly. I saw a pen on Frank's counter, one that was identical to a unique pen I'd given Vivian last Christmas. It was a limited edition, so seeing it there was no coincidence. Fast forward to another family gathering, and guess what? I saw that same pen peeking out of Vivian's purse. That was the moment I knew for sure she had something to do with the missing watch. I couldn't keep it to myself any longer. I confronted Vivian in private, away from the rest of the family. I told her everything I knew and what I suspected. But she just laughed it off, saying I had no proof. She even had the nerve to threaten me, saying she'd turn the family against me if I kept pushing the issue. I'm at a loss here. I know she's up to no good, but I don't know how to prove it without tearing my family apart. What should I do? Update 1. Well, I didn't expect to be making this update so soon, but here we are. A few months have passed since the whole incident with the family heirloom watch and my stepmother, Vivian. I thought things would settle down, but boy, was I wrong. Just recently, I found out that Vivian has plans to sell a piece of our family land. This isn't just any plot of dirt, it's been in our family for generations, and the idea of selling it never crossed anyone's mind. That is until Vivian came into the picture. My nephew Tom, who's always had a keen eye for when things seem off, told me he saw Vivian meeting with this real estate agent who gave off some seriously shady vibes. You know, the kind of guy who looks like he'd sell you a house that's about to collapse and call it rustic charm. So, I decided to check out the land myself, and sure enough, there were surveyors all over the place, marking it up for development. I approached them, trying to keep my cool, and they let slip that Vivian hired them to assess the land's value. I couldn't believe it. She was actually going through with this. I tried talking to the rest of the family, hoping to get them on my side to stop the sale. But Vivian, with her silver tongue, had already convinced them that selling the land was for the best. She spun some tale about financial security and opportunities, and they ate it right up. Feeling like I was hitting a brick wall, I got a stroke of luck. I discovered an endangered species of bird nesting on the property. I thought, this is it. This has to stop the sale. I contacted a wildlife conservationist and informed them about the birds, hoping they'd step in. Meanwhile, Vivian threw this lavish party at her place, showing off her wealth like she was some kind of royalty. While she was busy playing hostess, I was in the background, talking to the conservationist who had come to check on the birds. But here's the kicker, when we got to the nesting site, it was empty. Vivian had somehow moved the birds. I don't even know how she managed it, but she did. She outmaneuvered me, and I was left staring at an empty nest, feeling like a complete fool. The next thing I know, Vivian smirking at me, saying the land sale has been finalized. Just like that, she's won again, and I'm left feeling utterly powerless. It's like no matter what I do, she's always one step ahead. So, that's where I'm at right now. I'm trying to figure out my next move, but it feels like I'm playing a game I just can't win. Update 2. A lot has happened, so let's get right into the update. It's been a whole year since the last mess with Vivian, and just when I thought things couldn't get any more twisted, I found out she's been up to something big again. This time, she's thrown her money into some high-profile startup. I couldn't just sit back, so I decided to meet with the startup CEO, Derek. I told him I was interested in investing, but really, I just wanted to see what I could dig up about Vivian's involvement. Turns out, Derek couldn't stop talking about how Vivian's investment was a game changer for them. He kept going on about how they were struggling until she came along. That's when it hit me, the technology they were using, it was based on an idea I had shared with Vivian years ago. I couldn't believe it. She'd taken my idea and made it look like her own. I was furious, and I wanted to do something about it. So, I started dropping hints to Derek about possible insider trading. I thought if I could make him paranoid, he might slip up or start digging around himself. And boy, did he take the bait. He launched an internal investigation, and before I knew it, the whole thing was in the media. It was a scandal. But Vivian, she's something else. She stood by Derek publicly, acting all supportive, and it only made her look better. She was celebrated for her loyalty during the company's crisis. It was like she was untouchable. The investigation turned up nothing. No evidence of wrongdoing, and Vivian came out of it smelling like roses. Her reputation was stronger than ever, and she was praised left and right. Meanwhile, I was left watching from the sidelines. My plan completely backfired. I thought I could take her down, but all I did was help her climb higher. It's like everything I do just ends up making her more powerful. It's frustrating, to say the least. I'm not sure what my next move is, but I've got to be more careful. Vivian's not someone to be underestimated. Update 3. I have to get this off my chest because it's been eating me up inside. So, a few months back, I overhear my stepmother, Vivian, planning some secret trip to a tropical island. She's always been into shady deals, but this sounded big. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was up to no good, so I decided to follow her. I know it sounds extreme, but you have to understand, this woman has been a thorn in my side for years, and I just had to know what she was plotting. I get to the island and keep my distance, watching her every move. It's not long before she meets up with this guy, Mr. Kingston. He's got a reputation for being a ruthless businessman, the kind that would sell his grandma for a quick buck. I knew this meeting wasn't going to be anything good. I'm on this island, feeling pretty out of my depth, but I meet this local guy, Carlos. He's a laid-back dude, knows everyone and everything that goes on around here. I tell him about Vivian and Mr. Kingston, and he agrees to help me figure out what they're up to. Carlos has his ear to the ground and finds out that Vivian is negotiating some deal to take over a valuable resource on the island. I'm thinking, great, we can stop her, but it's not that simple. I try to warn the local community about what's happening, but they don't trust me. I'm just another outsider to them, and why should they believe me over Vivian, who's presenting herself as this big-time businesswoman coming to bring prosperity to their island? Despite my best efforts, Vivian's deal goes through. She gains control over this resource, and I can see the writing on the wall for the locals. They're going to be pushed out, and their way of life is going to change forever. And the worst part? My attempts to stop her only made her look better. She spun it like she was the savvy businesswoman making tough decisions for the greater good. I leave the island feeling totally defeated. It's like everything I do to expose Vivian's true nature just backfires and makes her stronger. I'm starting to wonder if I'm the problem here. Maybe I should just let it go and move on with my life, but I can't. It's like I'm obsessed with bringing her down, and it's costing me my peace of mind. I'm back home now, and I can't shake this feeling of failure. It's clear that my interference didn't do anything but help Vivian. I don't know what my next move is, but I do know that I can't keep going like this. It's like she's always one step ahead, and I'm just left picking up the pieces. Last update. A lot has happened since my last post, and I've got to get this off my chest. 2 years. It's been 2 whole years since I've been on this relentless pursuit to expose Vivian, my stepmother, for the conniving person I know she is. I've become a shadow of my former self, barely interacting with anyone, my mind constantly churning over how to bring her down. It's like I've been living in a fog, with only one clear thought: Vivian must be stopped. Just when I thought I was out of moves, I caught wind of her latest scheme. Vivian was planning to merge her already massive company with another major corporation. The news was everywhere, and I knew this was my chance. I had to act. So, I put on a suit that felt like a costume of my old life and headed to the merger announcement party. The party was as extravagant as you'd expect, with people in high spirits, completely oblivious to the woman they were celebrating. I wasn't there to enjoy the festivities, though. I was on a mission. As I mingled through the crowd, pretending to be part of the celebration, I overheard something that made my ears perk up, a conversation about a whistleblower within Vivian's company. I couldn't believe my luck. I needed to find this person. It didn't take long to track them down. Fear has a way of making people stand out. I found the whistleblower, a young man who looked like he was carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. He was scared, ready to bolt out of the country. But before he did, he handed me a stack of documents, proof of illegal activities within Vivian's company. I was torn. I had what I needed to take Vivian down, but at what cost? These documents could ruin the lives of so many innocent employees who had no idea about Vivian's dealings. I was holding a ticking bomb that could blow up everything. After much deliberation, I decided I couldn't leak the documents to the public. Instead, I approached Vivian at the party, evidence in hand, ready to confront her. I hoped, maybe naively, that I could appeal to whatever shred of conscience she had left. Vivian's reaction was not what I expected. She didn't deny anything. Instead, she looked at me with a resignation I'd never seen in her before. She admitted to everything, but then she dropped a bombshell of her own: she was dying. A terminal illness, she said, with only a few months left to live. I stood there, the papers in my hand suddenly feeling pointless. What was I supposed to do with this information now? Vivian, the person I had been so determined to expose, was facing the end of her life. It was a lot to process, and I'm still trying to figure out where to go from here.